up, Atlanta, and welcome to this special edition of Upfront Inside Atlanta's Entertainment Industry. I'm your host, Ray Cornelius, and today we have the dynamic duo from ATL Homicide. It's one of TVOne's hottest true crime series, and they're back for a second season. I'm here talking to David Quinn and Vince Velazquez. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
We're all about the W. We want to win. The game is up. You keep chasing that high like a crack rock. You're in, you're hooked. It's all about justice in Metro Atlanta.
We gotta get back in these streets and do our thing.
The responsibility is overwhelming. We're selling truth, and it's gotta start with us.
So, season 2, how excited are you guys?
Oh, man, beyond.
Crazy
Beyond
excited.
Yeah.
We never thought we would have a season 1.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you guys know that this was gonna become a pop culture phenomenon?
You know, no. I mean, to be quite honest with you, it's like the feedback has been phenomenal. You know, David and I, when we look at some of the remarks and some of the social media posts that we put out there, and it's like, what's so odd about this thing is that we're just being ourselves. Like, what you see here is us working the streets from day one. Yeah. And you know, we just think everybody is the way we are, but we've come to find out that a lot of people in law enforcement aren't.
And you know, TVOne allowed us to be ourselves. That was the important part. You know, there were other projects that were out there that were looking for detectives, but they wanted to fit into a certain category, a certain box. Me and this brother, Vin, we've been together, you know, since the year 2000, working homicide.
And I love your chemistry. I mean, because it's like you're kind of the silent type, and you're kind of the one that's sort of narrating it. Yeah.
He's the brains of the operation. I'm that grimy dude.
Man.
I'm in the street because I spent a lot of years in the street.
Okay.
Vin had been out into the world. I was here 2 years after high school. He educated me on so many things. I literally, 2 years after high school, I was at the Atlanta Police Department. I'm 55, you know what I mean? And just retired. So that perfect marriage, melding those two entities together, it created success in them streets.
Let's go back to the beginning. How did you guys get involved in law enforcement? And was this something that you wanted to do as a kid?
I think Vinny has the most compelling story.
My passion for law enforcement has always been, you know, some type of burning, you know, desire as a child. Not knowing what to do with that, so I took a different path. I went to the military, and I learned a trade. I used to fix airplanes.
Okay.
And then, you know, the natural progression is you get your civilian license, you get out, and you do that for an airline. So that's why I moved to Atlanta. I worked for Delta Airlines for many years. And I was making great money. I was doing well, had benefits. I could fly anywhere I want, great insurance benefits. But I found myself going to work every day and just being so dissatisfied. Just going to work and like, you know, like this is not for me. And I kept being drawn towards law enforcement. So one day I just said, let me just go look on, you know, this book and see what this APD application is about. And when I took that first step, you know, the next thing I know, I'm getting a call to take a test. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Fast forward, you know, to the day I have to make a decision. So I took a 75% pay cut to become a cop. You know, and I've never regretted it, never looked back at that, the best decision I've ever made, because once I got into law enforcement, I realized that what my passion was a calling. And you know, to this day, the progression all the way to homicide, meeting this guy, you know, not just becoming friends and family, but becoming partners. And what people don't realize about, you know, crime solving, homicide detective partners is that you know each other so well that, you know, we can speak volumes without ever opening our mouths, and we know what to do next. It's like an orchestra, you know, we're making it work, you know, at a crime scene. People would say, wow, you know, you guys have this chemistry. I'm like, well, you know, I can't tell you how it started, you know, it's not ended yet.
Right. Fast
forward, and here we are with season 2 of a show.
Amazing.
And for yourself, you said you started right after high school, so did you know then, you know?
As a child, I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, initially moved here when I was 14 to Atlanta with my family. But growing up, I went to prisons visiting family like it was going to church. I thought everybody did it. So I wanted to get into law enforcement because I saw things were happening to different family members. And I always had in my head, I want to have a holistic approach to law enforcement. I wanted to be a neighborhood cop. That's all I ever wanted to be. And so 2 years after high school, when I was eligible at age 20, I jumped right on it. I mean, and I stayed here for 33 years, you know, and it's been great because I was able to hit these streets of Atlanta even before crack was invented. So I was grinding about 10 years before Vinny even came to the city. And I knew a lot of people in the street, developed relationships, which I think is missing right now in law enforcement. I had people, I didn't have to pay money to tell me things. We had relationships, and it carried over into homicide work. Black people want their neighborhoods safe. It's just the way you cultivate and get the information from them.
Now, how did you two connect, or when did you two connect?
Man, we got promoted on the same day. I mean, you know, and what was odd about our, you know, our coming up in this whole law enforcement thing, when we were promoted, we went straight to homicide. Now, that very rarely ever happens. Typically, you go somewhere else, and I thought they made a mistake. I mean, I went to the deputy chief. I'm like, yo, are you sure? Like, I mean, this is like, you make the homicide later. He's like, no, I know what I'm doing. So he went to homicide same day I did. And I'm like, well, welcome to homicide. We don't know what we're doing. So we were in the same boat, so to speak. Brand new in homicide, 23-year veterans in homicide, looking at us like we had the plague. Like, didn't want to deal with us, didn't want to help us. And little by little, as we started working cases and we started understanding how to do this, and then we developed our own relationship as partners, we started to see the veterans looking to us to help them. That's when I realized, okay, we got something here.
Yeah. What was Atlanta's landscape at that time that you guys became homicide detectives? What was the crime?
2000.
Well, in 2000, so your crack was still out there, but it was different. So you didn't have your street corner hustlers like you probably had in the 80s. This was kind of the aftermath. A lot of people had gone off to the Fed, you know, the war on drugs, which to me was one of those kind of wars that, you know, it's still debatable, but it was the aftermath. It was the Armageddon. It was right after the crack really hit here. So you were getting a situation where robbery was starting. There was an uptick there. And robberies are the precursor to most of your murders. I mean, people don't wake up and say, I'm gonna go kill me somebody today. They wake up and say, I'm gonna go up today, I'm gonna wake up and go get me some money. And in the course of getting that money, sometimes somebody dies. But most of these murders are accidents. People pointing a gun at somebody, they jump, or in the streets, they buck, and they get shot incident to the robbery that was going on.
What was the most exciting part of your job or your daily routine?
You know, I remember coming to work early as I started to understand how to do the job. I was terrified for the first year because I didn't know what I was doing. You know, and my partner felt the same way until we started to understand this. And I think the best part of my job that resonates the most is when you solve that case, that first case that I solved, and I was able to call that family member and say, hey, I have good news. You know, because let's say this is a year-long case. For a year, this family's suffering. They want closure. They want, you know, and people want, like, call it revenge, call it payback. They want closure. They want to be able to say, this is the person that is responsible for my loved one's death. I want to see them face justice, and then we can move on. So the most rewarding piece and the most rewarding part of the whole process is telling them, we got the guy, we got it. And you know, and that's what, you know, I can never forget.
Speaking of cases, let's talk about your most memorable case. What's the one case that maybe stands out in your mind when you think about your career?
For me, the one that I carry with me every day, there was a boy. He was from DeKalb County. He had gone missing. And for 10 years, you know, no one really looked for this 15-year-old young black brother. His grandmother did everything, checked off all the boxes with law enforcement, with the community. Nobody cared about where he was. And then 10 years later, we find a skull off Hollywood Road in Northwest Atlanta with a golf ball size hole in that skull, which you know it's a homicide. And I began to work that case, and I forged this relationship with that grandmother. We were able to put that thing together, me and the grandmother, and with the help of my partner, we put that case together. But what was interesting, we had a funeral 10 years later that kind of hurt that grandmother experience, stayed with me because she was left to care for this child because the boy's mother had died years before. And she let him go to the movies, he never came home. No one helped her. And the fact that brought that case in, and it was really complicated, we put it together. But I ended up getting a tattoo of him I got his skull on my shoulder. Wow. So he's with me every day. That golf ball size hole is on my right shoulder to this day because.
And that let me interrupt you, but that right there, for him to, like, And I remember him going through this and the stress and the drama and everything going through this. And then when he told me what he did, I'm like, wow. So that right there tells me, this is a guy that I know. So if you don't know him, this is what he does. Like he keeps these things close to his heart. The family's close to his chest. Nothing but respect for this guy.
How did you guys, in the midst of all of that, how did you guys keep the faith? How did you guys stay grounded and inspired or encouraged to keep going? Because you're constantly going to death, and destruction every day.
It's difficult. It's a challenge to get up every day and not knowing what you're going to get next. You show up at a crime scene. There's a dead person there. You're trying to figure it out. The range of emotions that you go through. Mm-hmm. I'm going to have to talk to this family in a minute, either break the news, the worst news of their entire lives, that someone had been killed.
Facts.
And then get to work, and then really roll up your sleeves and say, okay, we got to figure this out. So the determination to do that, and again, like I said before, the drive to give that family what they need, that's what made me get up every day. That's what motivated me every single day. 17 years I worked murder with this guy. 5, 6, 7 days a week sometimes. So if you add up in 17 years the amount of cases that we've worked and the amount of families we've dealt with, and when you go home and you switch to family mode, you go out with friends, you meet with family, your neighbors, and when you wake up in the morning, you're back at it.
Mm-hmm. We'll be right back with Vince Velazquez and David Quinn from ATL Homicide. We'll be right back.
I know kids worry about a lot of things. Getting enough food to eat shouldn't be one of them. Through a nationwide network of food banks, Feeding America serves virtually every community in the United States. See how you can help your community. Visit feedingamerica.org.
Mom, I got it. What are you doing in there?
I got stuck.
Are you a dog?
I wouldn't do that. Have you seen the pliers? Where'd you find those?
It's not your birthday.
Sorry.
Bye, Grandpa.
Bye, Grandpa.
Take care of yourself.
What are you doing? What are you looking for?
If you love them enough to do this, surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the-right-seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
Welcome back to Upfront Inside Atlanta's entertainment industry, and today we're talking to the guys from ATL Homicide, Vince Velazquez and David Quinn. Guys, let's talk about this partnership that you now have with TVOne, with this amazing new show. Did you ever think that the cases that you guys had worked on all those years would actually become content for television?
No, we couldn't in our wildest dreams would have imagined that they'd be people depicting us on TV, going through the same crime scenes that we walked through, reenacting them. It's unbelievable. So we did not see that coming. The beautiful part was TVOne in the beginning said, we want you to be yourselves, your authentic selves. And that was a selling point for us. We were honored by it.
I think when they, we shot a sizzle reel, like we worked with some producers, and when we shot that reel, thinking back what we've learned in this business, we're in season 2, so obviously we sit down, we're in a studio, we're filming, we're doing voiceovers, we're understanding how this production side works. Mm-hmm. When we think back to the day we were sitting in my living room and we're shooting this sizzle reel, and literally I'm drinking a Corona, and but we're being ourselves, and We're talking about some cases, and we're doing a Skype thing the very beginning, right? And then from there they brought a production crew in to do a little bit more. To think about how that thing made its way around all the networks and everything else, where TVOne was like, man, we love the authenticity that you guys have. We want you to be yourselves. Mm-hmm. Some of the other networks, we were turned down. We were offered a development deal by one network, but they wanted to tweak it, and they wanted it to be, something. But when TVOne came in, they were like, hey guys, we love you for who you are. Yeah. It was a no-brainer. It
was awesome.
It was a no-brainer. We were like, we know exactly where we want to go.
Why do you think audiences tune in each week? What is it about these type of shows, these true crime story shows, that they just keep coming back and watching each week?
People are fascinated by murder.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the ultimate crime in the Bible, the Quran, wherever. That's it. That's the epicenter of tragedy, pain, and everything else. So they're just fascinated by it. For us, working it, it's a hell of a responsibility.
Yeah.
And that responsibility creates a rush. Yeah. So you live for the rush of trying to solve and put these families at ease. These become your families, the victims left behind. Yeah. And what's interesting, we found working together all those years, the family of the suspect, the accused, the one that's going to get the time, they were important to us too. We forged relationships with those mothers as well. Yeah. It's all about the truth. You know, and so we kept that mantra. It's not, whatever the truth is.
You know, there's been times when we've been at trial and we walk into the courtroom and we see our victims' families there. They usually sit on one side of the courtroom, suspects' families sit on the other. Now, some of these suspects' families we've known for years. So we would come in and some of our victims' families would show some concern because we're saying hello to the suspect's family. Right. And then we'd have to explain to them, like, listen, they did nothing wrong. But these are people that we've known over the years. They themselves may have been family members of other victims that we've worked. And it was bizarre how that whole thing mixed together, but that's just who we were. Even other detectives are like, man, you're saying hello to those people? Of course we are. What did they do wrong?
There's no side.
They just happen to be related to the guy that killed somebody. That doesn't make them bad people. So why not say hello to them?
All right. Let me ask you, so when you guys are on the set and you're in production, how much input are you guys, I mean, they're basically recreating your cases, but really how much input do you guys have in the production process?
We have, there's been some scene where like, no, man, you gotta, you know, and there was a scene this season where they sent it to us and it was a scene in an interview room where a suspect kind of like, you know, true to life, a real case where he kind of bucked up a little bit and, you know, we had to put him down on, you know, in the carpet and, you know, handcuff him. It wasn't as dramatic as they made it. And when we saw it, we were like, you got to cut that out. Yeah, that's not how it went down. You know, we want this thing to be, you know, as authentic as it could be.
We want the real Atlanta people that saw this happen. Our real witnesses, our real viewers are the ones that saw it in real time. The people in these neighborhoods, the people that we loved in these neighborhoods that helped us solve a lot of these cases. And a lot of times we kept them off the books. We don't want to come off as, you know, foul and phony. So again, TVOne, they allow us that creative input.
And we are also producers. We have producer credits. So what that means is now we're not the production company, but this is our stories. This is our intellectual property. So it's got to be authentic. So many times when we're reading a script for the actors, we're like, okay, that's not really how it should be. If you show up at a crime scene, you know, we wouldn't have done it that way. David wouldn't have said it that way. So they respect the input that we have because we do, people that watch this show that know us, you know, they can see, you know, if this thing is real or not. And, you know, to this day, everybody says, man, those guys get you. Your actors, they get you guys.
I was gonna say, what was it like when you actually watched these guys playing you?
The first time I saw my actor pick up the phone and say Velazquez, like I laughed. Like, you know, he's like in the scene, the phone rings in the squad room, he's like Velazquez. Yeah. Like I chuckled. I'm like, that sounds so bizarre to hear somebody, you know, portraying me saying my name. It was just, you know, it was surreal.
And for you?
It was, well, it took you back. I mean, the production value is so strong. It feels like a movie, but we realized we were living movies. The kind of stuff, you look back and you say, wow, we did all that. Yeah. We know we did it because we told them how we did it and it's on the paperwork. We talked about it in court. But, you know, they say imitation is the greatest form of flattery, but these kids are real artists too. I think they nail it. Yeah. We told them, don't come in trying to do impressions of us. You're never going to get me. Right. I'm just way too animated. You know, get within the box itself and just express yourself as an artist. And it works. Sometimes I got the popcorn going and I'm wondering what's happening next, even though I know I'm just entertained that well by these guys.
We lived this case and we're watching like, man, this is great. Like I'm literally glued to the TV.
Sometimes we're on the phone with each other, man.
Did you see that? Wow, he kicked the door in. You saw that?
Is there anything that you would do differently when you look back? Is there anything that maybe I probably would have done this a little differently or looked at a case differently?
In the career, you know, I think when I look back, I think it took me, for me personally, and I can't speak for David, it took me a while to really understand how I needed to connect more not just for my victims' families, but as I mentioned before, the other side, defense attorneys. And I think, it took me longer than I think normally because I wasn't programmed that way. And when I started to get it, I think if I would have went back, if I could go back in time, I think that's something I would have honed in a little sooner. But nevertheless, I came around finally. I think that the most important part is connecting with those people that you normally wouldn't connect with.
All right. We'll hear more from these guys after the break.
I'm heading out, man. You want to ride?
No, I got my car, but I actually really need to go to the bathroom.
Dude, are you okay?
I am definitely buzzed.
Yeah.
I think I will take this and I will take that ride home.
Because of you, I felt hopeless.
I know it was a joke, but it still hurt me.
Because of you, I felt wanted and not alone in this world.
Because you said hi to me on the first day of school, I felt included, and I knew that I was going to be okay.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
If you love them enough to do this, surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Welcome back to Upfront Inside Atlanta's entertainment industry. I'm your host, Ray Cornelius, and today we're talking to the cast of TVOne's hot series, ATL Homicide. Guys, but before we get into the new season, I wanted to go back to something that you had mentioned about the relationships that you had within the community. Over the years, we all know that the law enforcement and the African American community have sort of had this really volatile, relationship. How do you think that your presence here in Atlanta has helped to create better relationships between APD and the African American community?
Well, I feel like we gave families access. Since time immemorial, you've got police departments that have held close to the vest information related to an ongoing investigation. And that creates rumor, innuendo, and craziness in the public. People want to know. We give the case back to the community. It's your case. Time and time again, and he got me turned on to using the media as a tool to go on the news and talk about it. And I would give it up. I'd bring out all the crime scene photos, and we would give people access. People want to know what really happened because, believe it or not, there is no snitch rule as long as you cultivate and take care of your witnesses. You don't want to expose people too early in the process. So we put together a skill that kept people kind of hidden in the shadows until cases went to trial. Now you've got the trust. You've got your community. So the next time there's a homicide in that community, the people that live there know you're not going to expose them too early. And you've got your trust. But you've got to go into these living rooms, you've got to sit in these kitchens, and you have to protect the people that live in these neighborhoods that are quote unquote marginalized. I mean, we gave people the information, we let mamas know where we were, and a lot of times we had to tell them we don't have anything. And that's the toughest part of it, the ones you don't clear, the ones you don't solve.
Yeah. So what can your fans expect in this new season? What are some of if you could share some of the new stories that are going to be profiled in this new season?
You're going to see a case where, a young man who started hanging out with the wrong crowd and he was murdered and dismembered. You're going to see another case of a young couple, just going out to get something to eat and by, bad luck show up as people are trying to do a home invasion. So these are all the cases that we work, but, the tragedy is there in every case. And our victims come from all walks of life, from, drug addicted people to people who have jobs and work 9 to 5 and raise families. So murder has no boundaries when it comes to all the cases that we've seen. And you're gonna see that in these next 12 episodes this season. You're gonna see victims that come from all walks of life. You're gonna see suspects that, from pure evil to just, greed and lust. All these elements of murder and mayhem that come with crazy cases. So for 12 episodes, and last but not least, the production quality is so much better. Like, season 2 is much better than season 1. It's fine-tuned. The actors are better. The production quality is better. I think, fans won't be disappointed.
Yeah. Now, how is life outside of this show and in retirement? Are you guys still working closely with APD? Are you guys? I mean, because that's in your blood now to want to help people. So, what is life like after?
Well, he just retired for the 3rd time.
Yeah.
So this guy's been retiring for the last 3 years. Okay?
I retired with my 30 years in 2015. I stayed an extra 3.5 years as a mentor, I was a contracted mentor in the homicide unit. Because what police are really losing their way on is communication. Getting that confession or getting information from witnesses. If you don't get that information, you're nowhere. It's not all about fibers, forensics, and fingerprints all the time. You've got to put people in a position they're going to tell you the facts and the truth without disarming them, like sending them back to the neighborhood naked. You've got to give people something. So I taught that for 3 years. Now I'm out. We want to do more work in the community. We've partnered up with a charity called Solomon's Temple. Vin got me into it. It's a shelter for women in transition with children. Also, younger males can also be part of this particular outreach. And we want to do more work in that manner, Yeah,
it's important for us to make sure that we can, show that there's a different connect that we've always had with the community than what you see on TV, what most people perceive law enforcement to be. And not perceive, but what law enforcement has been in the past. So anytime we have an opportunity to talk to people or a community member or a group, we're just trying to show them how we did it. And it maybe, open up the dialogue to change things a little bit.
Yeah. I want to talk about your biggest lessons learned out of this entire career that you've built for yourself. What is one of the biggest lessons that you've learned? And we can start with you.
For me, the biggest lesson I've learned is that, humility is something that we don't always have. To be humble and to understand and empathize with people. Because too many times when you watch TV, you see police officers and their hands are on their hips and they're pointing their finger and they're ordering people around. At the end of the day, that's not how we ever did it, nor will we ever do that. So what I've learned is that people want to be treated with respect. They want to be treated with dignity. And because you are a powerful figure as a police officer, a detective or whatever, and you have some authority over people, that you need to show them that it's not about me telling you what to do. It's me doing a job and then trying to do it with you, to try to do it in a way that, you don't get hurt, I don't get hurt, and we all go home at the end of the day. And if it's as simple as just talking to somebody, sometimes just a conversation goes the wrong way. And next thing you know, voices are raised and tempers are flaring, and then a hand goes up, and next thing somebody's going to jail for what? That started with a conversation. So for me, the humility part of it is the most important piece.
And you, David?
For me, we had this plan when we first got together as partners, always speak truth to power. Sometimes homicide investigations, they can get really political. The media steps in, there's, an announcement for quick closure. We never subscribe to that way of thinking. We always encourage other detectives, and I've been doing it for the last 3 years, always speak truth to power, to your authorities, to the people over top of you, your chiefs, your majors, the people that command you, because you're talking about somebody's life. You lock up the wrong person, you can kill a generation. And so I learned, and we stood fast, because a lot of guys that'll make an arrest, if it gets too political, they want to put it out quick. We always took the agony road. The agony road means day and night, staying on a case. You got to make sure you got the right person. And the way you do that is to speak truth to power.
Well, guys, thank you so much for being my guest today on Upfront. We so look forward to this new season. You can catch ATL Homicide Monday nights on TVOne at 9 p.m. You can also catch Upfront every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on WCLK 91.9, as well as WCLK.com. That's our show for today. Have a good one.